Hello, hello, and welcome back for day 9 of the 12 days and 12 ways or insights to create a stress less holiday season for you. And as you know, these have been very intuitive. I hope you're getting value out of them because I'm really just speaking to what has been coming up in the moment, in the presence of my day to day. And today's conversation, strangely enough, was inspired by a conversation I was having with a hairdresser around how we identify and almost idolize the false idols, I suppose, of things that we get attached to, like hair, for example. I had quite a lot of my hair cut off today that was dead and it probably needed to go. But this has kind of sparked my intuitive process on bringing today to you. Hi, Becca. Nice to see you here. And please let me know if you've been following along, how you're finding these little daily love notes to just sort of deepen into what we do at this time of the year, which is a lot of introspection and a lot of looking back on the past, and very much in alignment with today's conversation about, letting things die as part of the feeding cycle in life. With every death, there is a rebirth. And just again, reviewing, our misalignment or our programming into thinking that sacrifice is something that is around loss rather than what it really means, which is to make things holy. So I really greet you from a very dark and rainy London today with an additional insight, some energetic support, and some heart-centered verbal frequencies, if you'd like to call it that, as we sort of make our way through this completion phase of the 12-12 Stargate and head toward this the solstice period on the 21st, and of course another eclipse. And I spoke about yesterday that a lot of my clients, a lot of you are commenting that you're having disturbed sleep, that you are feeling extra sensitive, especially all you HSPs and empaths out there, and that a lot of times we do kind of want to just curl in a ball and withdraw, and I think this is just really highlighting the amount of activation that's occurring in our chakras and our DNA. So if you didn't join me yesterday, please go back and do the chakra activation that I led you through yesterday, just to keep you in a place of secure embodiment. I think that with this massive rewiring that we're going through, all of us, our animals, the plants, the planet, the trees, we're all experiencing this as part of nature right now. And we need to let our bodies, push pause on the world, let our bodies catch up to what's really happening on a very deep cellular level. And what I was speaking into earlier, again, this very interesting pattern that's surfacing in many of us. I think a lot of times when we've gone through big changes in our life, we want to change what we're feeling on the inside to show on the outside. And oftentimes that comes with massive change in our appearances, like shaving heads or cutting our hair, or changing the color of our hair. I think our hair is a very big piece of our identity on the outside. And also, to just look at what might be going on underneath the surface for you as we go through this transmutation process. One of the themes of death that I've been speaking to is the death of the old story, that you are the storyteller. You are the one that tells the story, but you are not the identity of the story. And I think that it's important to remember that while we cannot change what trauma and abuses maybe happened to us, we can certainly transform through by rewriting a new story, editing your Akashic record, and also to really get curious about, am I dying to live, or am I living from a place of choice not to postpone energy in the aftertime? That it needs to integrate. We need to integrate the past. My mom's just come back from a funeral from a woman that was diagnosed with cancer only a few weeks ago, and prepared her whole ceremony so that people could actually celebrate her life and give space to that grieving process of that she's no longer in her physical body. And I think that when we're not living in the present, when we're choosing not to postpone energy in that after time, we don't get to see what's available to us in the infinite possibilities. And we need to integrate the past, so it doesn't need to create a dim future, right? In the repetition of doing that, because we've raced through it or spiritually bypassed it. And I've seen a lot of beloved animal companions that I've been supporting over the last couple of months, and people that have been, struggling with chronic disease, to come to peace as a death doula. It's one of the most beautiful processes I think that we can give to somebody, is to allow them the space to come back into their bodies. When we've suffered from, when we're in incredible pain, we tend to disconnect from the physical body because it is too painful. And I've been doing a lot of support at the moment, just helping gather energies in to the body again, to give them the energy that they require to leave this earth plane. And I think as well, we have to look at the death of reconciling the dreams, that when we celebrate the not dreaming as the way that we give away our power, because we don't want to be here now. Oftentimes the dream is that we are feeling like we're living in a nightmare, that we are dying petit morts, these slow deaths, because we don't like how our life is showing up, and we give power away rather than recognizing and remembering that we are powerful co-creators, and we get to choose in every moment how we're going to live. And we can't do that if we're in the past or so far forward in the future. We're not present with what is, in the sense of resources and connections and safety and belonging, to see what is actually available to us in the here and now. So I think it's really important to just pause and let that sink in too, when we speak to death, because when we speak of dreaming into desires, it's a very different thing to, dreaming awake as a space of avoiding being present with the discomfort. Remember, we need to feel in order to heal, to love whatever arises, even in the most challenging moments, when it's not conceptual anymore. It's very difficult sometimes to love what is arising when it feels anything but unlove, right? The unside of love. And I think we need to just gather our parts and our pieces and call back our soul parts and our body parts from all the hooks and the projections and the rejections, and I think again also unrealistic standards that we set for ourselves, to look at tomorrow as not necessarily the future. The repetition of the pattern is the past, and it's not the future. And a lot of times we're living from that place, and it's something that we need to let die. All the parts of me that are authentically connected to my light is the future, and not the part of me that is stuck in the past story, right? The hysterical culture of the past that dims the bright future. We want to live a beautiful now, and we can't do that if we're letting the past stop us from healing, in that sort of entanglement or entrapment or unconscious connection to the past as a driving force to stop you from co-creating, right, your brilliant future. And I think the greatest gift that we can give to others in that space of doing that for ourselves, in that rite of passage, is that when we rewrite the present in our own lives, in our own soul journey, in the ultimate sacrifice of grace, right? Sacrifice means soul. It's the connection with our soul's urging. And when we connect to that place and we start to choose differently in how we want to co-create the present, we affect the energy of the future, not just for us, but for others, to rewrite history. And I think that's, again, is the ultimate grace of the true definition of what sacrifice is. And I think that also once the cycle is complete in our life, remember everything in Chinese medicine, which is my go-to, learning, my learning place, what I practice in my integrative functional approach is very deeply rooted in traditional Chinese medicine, because we talk about the feeding cycle, and that in order to feed the cycle, it has to complete. And once the cycle is complete in our lifetime, in every moment, it is a completion of the circle. And there is only this presence in this moment. So when we think and we sit and we introspect and we try to process our daily events or what's happened in our lives up until this point, it is energy itself. Remember, I spoke about everything being energy in motion. And when it's slow enough, we hold physical form, but we're all made up of energy. And when energy in us is trying to complete itself to make more energy, more space and more presence in the openness of the next circle of this life, it's enlightened because it is open inside and it is open on the outside. Some of you know that I do a lot of biogeometry work, Dr. Ibrahim Karim, and everything is the circle of life, but always there is infinite possibility in how we are. That the circle never begins and it never ends. That is the energy in motion. So if we integrate the past so that we can rest together in the presence to create a future, that is grace, that is ease, that is infinite possibility. Because we are rewriting the past, we are weaving into being a new reality. And it is that ultimate blessing that we have the chance to realign and reconnect and remember is part of death, the death of what once was. And it's important that we give space for the grief of that, as well as the joy in that ultimate blessing that we are opening up to a future that is constantly available to us, and not the future of dreaming the nightmare because we don't want to be here now, but the other future, which is because we are present to create and innovate and connect, because we have the power of choice to do that. So while it is natural, to create deep-rooted bonds with those we love, we can feel subsequently a tremendous amount of loss and grief and despair if and when those relationships end with the dreaming of not wanting this now. And at this time of the year, I think there is a great deal of emphasis placed on birth, the birth of baby Jesus, the coming of the light. But the solstice, as we're heading into this, the darkest day of the year, is really nature's season of rebalancing between the circle of life and death and rebirth. And new life is never possible without a darkening, a sloughing off, a letting go. The ultimate grace in the sacrifice of giving up the ghost, so to speak. So take time. I think it's so important when we sort of look at the act of holiness, of being whole in ourselves, of knowing we came in whole, perfect and complete, and then forgot. But also that what makes this season holy is the act of exactly that, of letting go, of casting off, without the need to control, and with little to no guarantee that it will set us on a new trajectory together. This is the amplification of the 5D of 2020 and a whole new decade where we are writing into being through the death of what once was. And again, I always remind you to trust that you are part of nature, It is your true nature to be here now. Just as it is your true nature that your physical body is going to die. But just like the seasons, that there is a time and a place for everything. Winter is that space of contraction. It's nature's death that closes in on us with its cold and its dark promises to claim everything that isn't thriving, that isn't in its highest, greatest good in form and structure as well. And it isn't unusual to resist this process. So while we may find ourselves trying to sort of prop up or hold on for dear life, the old ways, lifeless as it may be, in an attempt to sort of reanimate the ill-fitting or the limp or even the destructive, because at least it was familiar, is that place where we are not present to create a future from that space, where we go into the dread and the hope and the despair of not wanting to be here now. So as reluctant as you might find yourself being, I think that holy act of the season, like every season, should be deeply rooted in trust, trusting in the natural cycle of life, in death and rebirth. And even as the old things are being cast off or torn away or leaving of their own accord, like the animals that we love, or you know, I bought my mum some beautiful tulips the other day, and they're coming to their end. And it doesn't have to be a space of disappointment if you know what it is, or heartbreak, or anything to be afraid of. It just is the cycle of life. And the sooner that we sort of let go of our attachments to the old way, the sooner we let the old stories die, the old things to go back, you know, ashes to ashes, dust to dust. We are all made of the earth, and we all return to the earth and the stars and the universe, because we are part of all of it. And this is how we make the new visible, to see the infinite possibilities in the unseen, and to appreciate wherever you find yourself in whatever season that may be. Because I think that there is value in really being with our experiences, to see, you know, was this in my highest, greatest good? Was it in integrity? Was it authentic? Was it vulnerable? Was it made of love? And, you know, when are we twisting ourselves into, you know, some kind of contortion to make something work, when we could be giving it a good death, you know, really honoring the dying process, and stop this craziness of mounting resistance to hang on to dear life, you know, gripping to dear life, to try and, you know, avoid change, when we should be respectfully, reverently concluding old attachments and letting them die. So you know, spend some time this week, this day, this moment, to look at what you are ready to let die in your life, and make way for the new. You know, use that as beautiful fertilizer for the new seeds that you're planting, that are in contraction, just like the bulbs right now under the surface. Just because you can't see it doesn't mean that there is energy being moved into it. So use intentionality to bring vitality and growth to those sort of contracted, fallow areas of your life, and feed it. You know, feed your soil, feed your inner climate, feed the nature of the things that you're dreaming into being, from a very, very intentional place of presence and trust, that even as the old form is decomposing, just like the leaves outside are turning to this lovely mush, they're composting the soil, they're going back into the roots and feeding it and nourishing it, even though we can't see it yet. So let me know if these conversations are helpful to you, and I really just would love you to share it. You can go back and watch all the other days and join me live for the next ones. I know I'm in a couple of different time zones right now, so if you're listening to this on the replay, please leave your comments. I read all of them, and let me know if you have any questions or any insights or any of your own words of wisdom to add to these conversations, because we can't create in a vacuum. We need each other. And I really invite you, to take some time today, in the cold, in the dark, to just consider where stagnancy and insufficiency may have set into your life, where there's entropy or paralysis or atrophy or apathy setting in, and where you could bring more love and attention and energy to those parts and pieces by using some of the tools that I have shared over the last couple of days. And maybe that's an amino acid support, or some other one of the tips that's really resonating with you right now. Maybe it's just to get more sleep or to drink more water. But just look at, some of your relationships, your habits, your identities, your projects. Look at where are they taking more from you and perhaps they should be giving. And is it possible they are really trying to release you? Are they worth salvaging, or will the sacrifice, the holiness of that, they're meant to be, instead of eroding your self-worth, your own energy flows, and your own wholeness, your holism, and your well-being. So try and listen to where you're being called, where something holy is calling up from under you, or confusion, or your overwhelm, or your apathy, or your from under your duvet, if that's who you are. And ask yourself, can I give my trust to this unspoken call, and go there. All right, and have a lovely rest of your day or your night, wherever you are, and I will see you back here tomorrow. All right, take care, everyone. Bye.